Hi, I'm Marc Spagnuolo, designer, craftsman, and host of The Wood Whisperer at thewoodwhisperer.com. Now today, I'm going to show you how the Festool CT dust extractors can improve one of the most common and critical tasks in the workshop, sanding. Sanding. A seemingly simple and straightforward task, but it's one that rewards us with a breathtakingly smooth surface on which to apply our finish. So why is it that so many woodworkers dislike, or more like loathe, that process? Well, there are a number of reasons that I can think of. It's slow and tedious, and there are a lot of different opinions out there about the proper sanding technique and different types of paper. And let's not forget that sanding produces a superfine dust that can cause us problems when it comes time to apply our finish. Oh yeah, it's pretty bad for our health too. Now, if you haven't found out the hard way already, a good sanding job is a critical component to any quality finish. I mean, think about it. We apply the finish to the wood for more than just protection, don't we? We use it to beautify the wood and amplify its features. But guess what else it amplifies? You guessed it, the flaws. So sanding properly and thoroughly is a critical component to every project. And if we could figure out a way to make sanding a more pleasant experience, maybe we can take it off of the dreaded necessary evil list. For me, hands down, the worst part of sanding is the dust. It just gets everywhere. I mean, it's hazardous, and it creates a less than ideal work area when it comes time to apply my finish. So for years, I did what most of us do. I just cobbled together a hose and some plastic fittings, and I connected my shop vac to my sander. Now, that was certainly an improvement over using nothing at all, but there were significant downsides. I mean, first of all, the hose just kept falling out. Let me tell you, that's a fun game to play when you're standing on an 8-foot ladder. And then I had to endure the banshee-like scream of the shop vac. I mean, that thing would kill my ears after about 2 minutes. Now, getting shocked from this plastic hose was always a nice treat, and I always had a lot of dust accumulating on the outside of the hose because of the static. And perhaps the worst part of the experience was going through 2 motors. Apparently, a bad seal in a filter meant that the dust was free to travel right into the motor, and apparently motors don't like dust. Now, I knew there had to be something better, and that's when I came across the Festool CT dust extractors. Let's compare some of the finer points. Now, here's a pad from a standard random orbit sander with an 8-hole configuration. Just to prove a point, I sanded a piece of Wengi for a few minutes using this light-colored paper. And notice how you have a bit of dust buildup in the center. Okay, that means that there's not only more dust and more friction there, but more heat, right there at the center of the pad. Now let's take a look at the Rotex pad. Notice a big difference here? There's a hole in the center, and the extraction holes are sort of more widely distributed toward the outer perimeter. This is the heart of what Festool calls jet stream technology. Air is forced out through the center hole, blowing the dust out toward the perimeter where these extraction holes suck it up. Now, here's a piece of sandpaper, again, nice light piece that I used to sand that Wengi board with. And notice the difference. Okay, there's no accumulation of dust anywhere on the paper. The constant airflow not only keeps the dust moving, but it keeps the temperature down as well. Check out these heat images. The Festool sander stays as much as 86 degrees cooler than the competition. And as a result, your sandpaper is going to last about 30% longer. Now, you remember some of the issues that I had with the old setup? Check this out. After about 2 years of using the same hose and the same sander, this thing isn't even thinking about falling off. Now, I don't really recommend trying this at home, but it's kind of fun to see somebody do it. Now, speaking of the hose, notice that there really isn't a whole lot of dust on here. Okay? The anti-static properties of this hose are going to keep the dust off, and it's going to stop you from getting shocked. You also aren't going to believe how quiet that motor is, at about 72 decibels. After a full day of sanding, that's music to my ears. Now, there's one feature on the CT dust extractors that's sometimes a little misunderstood, and that's the speed control dial right here. Now, at full blast, this suction is actually powerful enough to lift this half-inch board right off of the bench. Let me show you. Now, what do you think that's going to do to the surface while you're sanding? It's really the equivalent of putting excessive downward pressure on the sander itself, which is never a good thing. What I like to do is dial it down slowly until the sander just kind of glides effortlessly across the surface. It's kind of like an air hockey table. This means a smoother finish, less vibration, and less fatigue. And anybody who has spent an entire day sanding would certainly be thankful for that. You know, most people are committed to thinking about sanding as a one-tool affair. Those folks are the same ones who, after watching this segment, are still going to hate sanding and are still going to have to work harder than they need to get their finish just right. And the fact of the matter is, sanding is best tackled as a process involving a system approach. That means the right sander, a high-quality dust extractor, and of course, the right abrasives. Now, any craftsman will tell you that you need the right tool for the right job. And for me, the right tool is the one that increases the quality of my work, the cleanliness of my shop, and reduces my exposure to potential hazards. In this case, a Festool sander coupled with a CT dust extractor is the perfect combination and a very wise investment.